Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a YouTube video on the channel. And today guys, we are going to be going through every AFL team's run home, every AFL team, regardless of whether they're going to be making finals or not. We're going to be going through every AFL team's run home to see where they can possibly finish on the ladder. Because for teams like, Adelaide, GWS, Essendon, Hawthorn, etc. There's still places to be played out for 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, West Coast North, 17th, 18th. There's still lots of places to be played out for, and then obviously the top 8 as well. So there's a lot going to be going on. So we're going to be going through every AFL team's run home in this video to see how hard or easy it is, and that will determine where they may be able to finish on the ladder. So this took a lot of work to do, so I really hope that you guys do like and subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. We're going to go ahead and hop right into things with the Adelaide Crows. So here is how it's going to look for the remainder of the video, except sometimes the run home will be down the side here instead. But anyway, Adelaide's run home has round 19 SCG versus Sydney, round 20 Carlton at the Adelaide Oval, round 21 West Coast at Optus Stadium, round 22 North Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval, round 23 Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. 3 of their last 5 games are at the Adelaide Oval, which does mean they can perhaps spring upsets in, they'd go in starting favourites against North Melbourne, but Port Adelaide and Carlton go in starting favourites against the Crows. So there is chances that they can pull off upsets against Port Adelaide and Carlton, perhaps. And there's definitely chances. West Coast at Optus Stadium could be a bit harder. West Coast have been looking okay. It's in Perth. It does make things a lot harder. And then Sydney at the SCG is a really tough team to beat. But the Adelaide Crows, it's an interesting run home. Got a little bit of easiness, but I reckon they're cracking every single game at the Adelaide Oval. Every single game except for the game in Sydney. I reckon, though, with the Adelaide Crows, they could spring upsets in many of these games as well. You never know. Well, Brisbane, they've got aspirations of making top 4, and even better for them would be top 2. But they've got to get through this fixture, and it's looking pretty tough for them. Round 19 at the Gabba versus Gold Coast. Round 20 at the MCG versus Richmond. Round 21 at the Gabba versus Carlton. Round 22 at Marvel versus St Kilda. And round 23 at the Gabba versus Melbourne. Now, this is a pretty tough fixture. All these teams are in or contending for the top 8. So, Brisbane don't have the easiest of run home at all. Now, round 19 versus Gold Coast at the Gabba should be a win for Brisbane. Round 20 at the MCG is a tough one against Richmond. Round 21 versus Carlton, they'll be looking to bang that one away. Round 22 as well, and then round 23. They'll be hoping, because it's at the Gabba. But yeah, for Brisbane, to make top 4, they'll be looking to try and win a vast majority of these games, only allowing probably to drop 1. And then, if they're extremely lucky, other results going their way to drop 2 as a top 4 race is really getting interesting. Carlton, Melbourne, some teams really contending for the top 4. So they'll be looking to try and bank away those wins if they want to make the top 4. And then these 3 other games are a bit easier, but at the MCG against Richmond will be pretty tough. So now to Carlton, who's, by looking at this fixture, their top 4 hopes are probably done. They'll have to be springing some surprise upsets against Brisbane, Melbourne or Collingwood if they want to get the job done. Carlton versus Collingwood round 23 will be very interesting. But first of all, round 19, Marvel Stadium versus GWS. There's going to be some percentage here up for grabs, so Carlton simply must take it. Round 20 at the Adelaide Oval, that's not an easy task. Adelaide will come out firing, as they always traditionally do in every game. They don't let themselves get smashed, even though they do get smashed. But still, they will try. I have that feeling they'll try, and that's a danger game for Carlton. And then Brisbane, Melbourne, Collingwood to finish off the year. 3 extremely tough finishing games to end off the year. So you'd be looking to bank GWS and Adelaide, and then, to secure a home elimination final, we'd be looking to beat probably at least one of Brisbane, Melbourne, and Collingwood. 3 very tough tasks, 3 very tough big weeks, 3 big last weeks for Carlton to see where they will finish in the top 8. Well, they will finish, but to see where they'll finish. Now to Collingwood, who also have an extremely tough fixture. Round 19, Essendon. Now, Essendon have been looking better, so this is not a easy win. This is a 50-50. They will go in favourites. They are favourites. But again, though, Essendon can still definitely pull off the upset. They've been good. Port Adelaide at the MCG round 20, that simply has to be a win. It'll rule out Port Adelaide. Their season will be over. And then the last 3 rounds, Melbourne, Sydney and Carlton are extremely tough. And again, for Collingwood, their top 4 hopes are probably over with this. But again, to secure a home elimination final, they'll be looking to beat teams Melbourne, Sydney, Carlton. And Carlton versus Collingwood, round 23 could decide. That could be an elimination final. So, yeah, got a really big round 23 match coming up between Collingwood and Carlton. And, yeah, Melbourne and Sydney will be pretty tough to beat, especially Sydney at the SCG and Melbourne at the MCG. But, look, 4 out of their last 5 games are at the MCG, which does give them some hope. Now on to Essendon, who have an interesting run home. Ahead of them, round 19, Collingwood at the MCG. Again, they could spring the upset in this game. Round 20, North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. North Melbourne have been looking better. This is going to be the game of the improvers, Essendon versus North Melbourne. GWS versus Essendon. Essendon are a chance to win this game, and they can beat Port Adelaide round 22 at Marvel as well. Round 23 at the MCG is going to be Richmond, which could loom as the Tigers' last chance to get into the top 8. And yeah, I think Essendon, they can win that game, which they can win all these games. They're a chance. This is a pretty simple run home for the Bombers. Although if they were to have like Port Adelaide at home, it'd be different. But because they got Port Adelaide away, like at home for them, Marvel, Richmond, the MCG, and Collingwood. I think Richmond and Collingwood stand in the way of not having a perfect 5 out of 5. But other than that, they're a pretty good run home. Now onto the Dockers, which are trying to make the top 4. Round 19 at Marvel Stadium got Richmond. Richmond don't play Marvel the best, so this is a chance for a victory. Round 20 at Optus got Melbourne, another chance for a victory. Round 21 Marvel the Dogs. Now that could be a tough game because the Dogs do play Marvel very well. Round 22 Optus Stadium, West Coast. Round 23 Manuka Oval against the Giants. So it's an interesting run home here for the Dockers because, well, they may have some tough teams, but they can win all these games. Friday night versus Richmond is going to be critical to see how they'll go versus the Dogs. And then round 20, I reckon that they should be able to bank that against Melbourne at Optus Stadium. And then I think round 22, round 23 are pretty much gifted wins at this stage, I think. I feel like they're pretty much gifted wins here, although they're all danger games. But I feel like, yeah, I reckon they can win potentially all 5 of these 5 games. And if there was to be one game they'd lose, it'd probably be versus the Western Bulldogs. Now onto the Geelong Cats, who are desperately looking to finish first, and the run home would suggest pretty easily they can. Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval, round 19, round 20. The Dogs at Cardinia Park, round 21. The Saints at Cardinia Park, round 22. The Suns at Metricon, round 23. The Eagles at Cardinia Park. Dogs, Saints, Eagles at Cardinia Park. That will be 3 wins for the Cats, you'd be thinking, just because the Dogs won't play too well at Cardinia, nor will the Saints, and definitely not West Coast. So I reckon they should be able to win all 3. Going to Adelaide Oval to play Port Adelaide could be tough, but again, I reckon they'll be able to win that, and they probably should be able to take care of the Suns. This is a potential 5 out of 5 for the Cats to win all 5 of these games. Now on to Gold Coast. Their run home is Brisbane at the Gabba in round 19, round 20. The Eagles at Metricon, round 21. Hawthorn at UTAS, round 22. The Cats at Metricon, round 23. The Roos at Marvel. So it's a bit of a danger run home for the Gold Coast Suns. You may have been looking at this a few weeks ago and going, oh yeah, Gold Coast, easy. They can win pretty much all these games. But now games like even versus Hawthorn and North Melbourne become danger for Gold Coast. So they won't be able to win against Brisbane and Geelong. I think those are out of the equation, but they'd have to spring upsets, though. They could definitely spring an upset against the Cats, so that is more than possible. And against the Lions, it can be done, but it's just going to be tougher. And then round 20, they should easily get a win over West Coast. Round 21, UTAS. It's going to be a tough task versus Hawthorn. UTAS is Hawthorn's brilliant ground. They don't play too bad down there. So, yeah, they can beat some really good opponents, but they can have shocking games down there too. So they are a chance in this one. And then round 23, Marvel versus North Melbourne. Could loom as a danger game because their last visit to Marvel wasn't their greatest. So now onto the Giants, and they are trying to make a season look respectable, and with this run home, it is tough. They've got the Blues at Marvel, round 19, round 20, Sydney at the SCG, round 21, the Bombers at Giants Stadium, round 22, the Doggies at Marvel, round 23, the Dockers at Manuka. This is an extremely tough run home for the Giants. These are all teams pretty much contending for the 8, except one, which is Essendon, which are the improvers. So this is going to be a really tough run home, and the Giants have a good chance of fizzling out in every single one. 2 games at Marvel against 2 very good teams there. That's a worrying sign. Swans at the SCG, they're too hard to beat. They could spring an upset against the Dockers at Manuka, but the Dockers have been pretty good all year. Their best chance of victory is at Giants Stadium versus Essendon, but not even that is a lock. Now for Hawthorn, definitely a few danger games in here. Round 19, North Melbourne at Blunston. That's not a guaranteed win. St Kilda at Marvel round 20. That's going to be tough. But again, they could definitely do it. Round 21 at UTAS versus Gold Coast. I would say they're actually a chance to win this game. Gold Coast have been a bit disappointing in the past few weeks, so Hawthorn, this is definitely their chance to bank a win here. Round 22 versus Richmond. You never know. They are a chance. Richmond haven't been great. Round 23 at UTAS. If they can beat the Doggies down there, that is another big statement. And that'd be a massive statement for the Hawks. They did it last year. They can definitely do it again this year. An interesting run home. Bit of easiness, bit of hardness. But it's going to be exciting. Again, St Kilda, Richmond, the Doggies are probably the tougher matches. North Melbourne and Gold Coast are probably some easy ones, but all these games still do loom as danger games for the Hawks, which they can easily lose because you don't know when they're going to turn up. Now on to Melbourne, which their run home is looking interesting. If they want to try and solidify top spot, they've got a lot of work to do. It's a really dangerous run home, and they do have a chance to lose probably all these games, really, if they're not on their very best. They've got the Doggies at Marvel in round 19, Saturday night, grand final rematch. That is absolutely massive. Round 20 at Optus Stadium, we've got the Dockers, and that will be a tough one to bank. Round 21, the Pies, round 22, the Blues, both at the MCG. Round 23, Lions at the Gabba. Round 23 is going to be a tough one to win, as to round 20. They are two opponents that are around the same stage as them, but they're away games, which will make things pretty tough. Round 21 and round 22, both could be potential wins, but both could be potential losses as well, because Collingwood and Carlton will give it their absolute hardest. Round 19 with the Western Bulldogs, you never know with them, so that could be another springed upset. So Melbourne have the capability of losing all these games or winning all of them, so it's going to be interesting to see. But again, I think they will probably, I reckon, they'll win 3 of them. I think they'll lose to the Dockers and the Lions. But an interesting top 4 race awaits, because all these results could go either way. Now for North Melbourne, who do have the chance of claiming a few scalps in their run home. They got Hawthorn at Blunston, which is definitely a time where they could claim a scalp, and then Essendon round 20 at Marvel. As I said earlier, in Essendon, it's the game of the improvers. Should be interesting. Sydney round 21 at Marvel. That is no lock for Sydney as of yet. North Melbourne played all right there, and Sydney won't play Marvel the best. That's going to be interesting to see. Round 22 at the Adelaide Oval, Adelaide Crows. That's going to be a tough game, though, with the Adelaide Crows crowd at the Adelaide Oval. Round 23 at Marvel versus Gold Coast. They could go in starting favourites in that. Who knows? The last time Gold Coast were at Marvel, it was a horror show. So North Melbourne do have the potentiality of winning probably half of these games if they are their very best. It's an interesting run home, and with North Melbourne in the stage that you don't know where they're at right now, this is going to be an interesting run home, and we'll test them. Now over to Port Adelaide's run home, and it's looking pretty tough for them. Got to beat the Cats round 19 at the Adelaide Oval, and then they've got to do it all again against another great team in the Pies round 20 at the MCG. So those 2 games for me will loom as Port Adelaide's biggest challenges of the run home, and then simply stuffing up just one of these games will mean season over. So they have to win at least one of these games. But yeah, they'll be looking to win both of them, which is really tough against 2 quality opponents, and I reckon they'll lose both of them. But then I reckon they'll finish off their season with a potential 3 wins. Richmond at the Adelaide Oval, Essendon at Marvel, Crows at the Adelaide Oval. So it's going to be an interesting run home for Port Adelaide. Not their year this year to make finals, unfortunately, for them. But again, Essendon is a danger game, round 22 Marvel. All these games do loom as danger games, although I do think they'll be able to definitely beat Richmond and Adelaide, and maybe the Bombers. But yeah, I think the first 2 weeks will sum up where their finals chances are at. So now on to Richmond. They've got an interesting run home coming up. Again, whether they make the 8 or not is decided in the first 3 weeks. They've got Fremantle, Brisbane, Port Adelaide, Hawthorn and Essendon. Now Fremantle at Marvel. Now they don't play Marvel great, so this could be a loss for them, which would really send their top 8 hopes into shreds. Then Brisbane round 20 MCG, maybe like flame footed. They're not winning this game. Well, they will, because at the MCG Brisbane don't play that ground well, so there's a chance for a win. Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. They will have to bank that. They will really have to bank that if they want to make the top 8. Otherwise, it could get very tough for them, which I don't think they'll bank that. I think Port Adelaide too strong at the Adelaide Oval. Round 22, round 23, Hawthorn, Essendon. That is where their season could potentially lay. If they just lose one of these games to Hawthorn or Essendon, their season, they will not make the top 8. But if they can win both of these games and against Brisbane, then they may make the top 8. But yeah, some really big games coming up for Richmond to see where their season lays. Now, St Kilda, they were a team that probably about 6 weeks ago, you would have had in your top 4. And now, you might not even have him in your top 8. Really tough run home presenting St Kilda. West Coast and Hawthorn in the next 2 weeks. West Coast Optus, Hawthorn Marvel, have to bank both of them. And I think West Coast will be a challenge and Hawthorn could be a challenge as well. And then, from here is where it gets tough. Cats Kardinia Park, Brisbane Marvel, Sydney Marvel. So, things are getting really interesting. They got their last 2 games at Marvel against 2 very fragile teams at that stadium, Brisbane and Sydney. So if they can win them both, then they'll make the top 8. But if they don't win them both and they only win these 2, but if they drop one of those 2, one of the Eagles or the Hawks, their season is probably done. And then the Cats, well, they won't beat the Cats at Kardinia Park. A lot is lying on the last 2 games. Brisbane are probably too strong at Marvel, but Sydney could really shape up whether they make the top 8 or not. And their percentage is looking really unhealthy. So, yeah, I reckon the last 2 games, these 2 and the last 2 will mean a lot. Have to win the first 2, have to win the last 2. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting run home for the Saints. But, yeah, pretty tough fixture ahead. Now on to Sydney. Their run home is looking pretty interesting. Next 2 games, the SCG, Adelaide and Giants, both at the SCG. So those should be probably 2 pick-up wins. You can't take North for granted at Marvel. That could be an upset and really ruin their top 4 chances. But if they do win that, well, then their top 4 chances are kept alive with the last 2 rounds playing massive role. Collingwood at the SCG and St Kilda at Marvel. And I'll tell you, the last 2 games will potentially set up how Sydney's season will look, whether they'll be playing in a away qualifying final, a home elimination final, or even an away elimination final. So, yeah, the last 2 rounds will set up how their season will look, as they are pretty challenging, last 2 games. And the rest of the fixture, not too bad. Now on to West Coast. They got St Kilda at Optus, the Suns at Metricon, the Crows at Optus, the Dockers at Optus, and the Cats at Kardinia Park. So rule out the Cats already, and rule out the Suns, and probably rule out the Dockers. Their chances of wins are up against St Kilda and Adelaide, both at Optus Stadium. 2 probably teams that are probably weak at this ground. St Kilda probably a weak at Optus, and Adelaide are probably weak at Optus as well. So this is their chance for 2 wins to try and get themselves off the bottom of the ladder. I reckon their easiest game to win will be against the Crows, and they'll probably pick up a win there. St Kilda, who knows? But an interesting run home, and they could get off the bottom. Alright, now onto the final team, the Western Bulldogs. Round 19 at Marvel Stadium is a massive game versus Melbourne. Could potentially set up their season. Round 20 at Kardinia Park versus the Cats. Massive game. They'll probably end up losing it. Round 21 at Marvel versus the Dockers could potentially be where their season sits. And then round 22, the Giants. Round 23, the Hawks. But don't take the Hawks for granted at UTAS, because it may not be as easy as what they think. So there is some really... I reckon they'll definitely bank a win against the Giants. That could be the only win they bank in their last 5 games, however. It is a really tough run home for the Western Bulldogs. And whether they make finals or not will really be laying at the hands of Melbourne, Geelong, Fremantle and Hawthorn. Because Melbourne, Geelong and Fremantle are probably going to be top 4 teams this year. Hawthorn at UTAS can be pretty hard to beat. But yeah, I don't think this will be enough to get into the top 8. So, sorry this video was so long, but there's a lot to go through and a lot of different possibilities that could happen. But anyway, we're going to wrap that up now. This was my opinion. This is just what I'm thinking, how the teams will lay out. But the run home fixtures are looking really interesting for every single club. And with all the upsets around, who knows how it is going to play out. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Sending you guys another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Bye everyone. Flaming Footy out.